Camryn Conner with Tiger Rag Audibles podcast. I'll be hosting today's episode for y'all. This will be my first time hosting for you guys. I just recently graduated from LSU. Go Tigers. So there will be more to come. Today's episode, I'll be bringing on special guest Todd Horne and surprising him with a bit of a mid-season, midterm check-in on LSU football so far. We'll also be going over some LSU football history with the game coming up this weekend with LSU versus Army. Special thank you to our sponsor, Paw Paw's Campers and Cars. That's pawpawsrvs.com, 1-800-728-CAMP, 1-800-728-2267. We'll be right back with you guys after this commercial.
Hey neighbors, we're not that far from where you are. Make that short drive to Paw Paw's Campers in Picayune and see our Wildwood, Catalina, Sportsman, and Zinger trailer lines and our Rockwood and Heritage Glen fifth wheel lines. From Houma to Hammond, Biloxi to Jackson, and Mobile and Pensacola, we're not that far from where you are. Come and see us.
You're gonna love the way we deal. Paw Paw's Campers City and Picayune. You're gonna love the way we deal.
Hey y'all, it's Camryn Conner back with Tiger Rag Audibles. We have Todd Horne with us, the editor of Tiger Rag. Todd, how are you feeling about LSU football so far this season?
Well, I'm feeling a lot better about LSU after that Auburn win. I mean, that was pretty much a domination. It was kind of tight for a little while, probably tighter than most people imagined, but LSU put together 4 straight touchdowns in the second half and blew them out. So it was a complete domination, and I'm feeling better about the defense too. Yeah,
I would agree. I think what we had against Auburn is what we needed for the season to continue on. What's this we? Are you a cheerleader or what? What are you? I am. What is it they say? Go Tigers, go?
Is that what they say, huh? Okay.
Okay, well, without the we in this conversation, I just was wondering if you and I wanted to go over a season report since we're halfway through the season.
Reports? You mean like grades or something?
Yeah, like a report card, like we're teachers.
Oh, like midterm, so yeah, I guess it is a good time because they're like 7 games into 12 games, like you said. So, yeah, but I don't have any grades ready. Did you sharpen your pencil already? You've got
pencil sharpened, my eraser's out. Let me just jump on into it. So I don't know how you feel about Daniels. I was never a huge Jaden Daniels fan. I know now he has gotten better this season, but there was just something about last season that just rubbed me the wrong way with him. But I would say this season I'll give him an A.
Well, I couldn't agree with you more. I think statistically he's, first of all, statistically he leads the nation in virtually every offensive category, it seems. Second of all, I mean, without Jaden Daniels, LSU wouldn't be anywhere this year. So I agree with you. You've got to give the kid an A. What I'm curious about, I think I already know the answer to this, but I'm going to ask it anyway. What about Jaden Daniels did you not like last year?
Well, so I just thought last year he always would run the ball, and I don't think it ever worked out for him the way that he wanted it to work out for him last season. Like there was something about him to where he couldn't even get a full 5 yards before he got tackled, and he would just continue in that same thing over and over again, whereas now he is able to run the ball.
So you like a quarterback that actually drops back and not just pretends like he's trying to throw the ball, but actually goes through his progressions and reads before he tucks it under and runs. But you do agree, Camryn, that Jaden Daniels is a great runner, right?
I do agree. I think he has done amazing this season. I think the season's what LSU needed to see to make sure that they chose the right QB1 instead of Nussmeier.
But I still think Nussmeier's a good quarterback too. Garrett Nussmeier I think he's going to only benefit from what he's, getting to sit behind Jaden again this year.
I do agree. I think Nussmeier is going to be the best QB1.
I think you really like Garrett Nussmeier. But anyway, let's go to the next position group that you've got there for your grades.
So my next one was going to be the running backs. I gave him a B+. I love Logan Diggs. I think Logan Diggs gets better every week, and every week the more the offensive line relies on him to win the game.
He's a tough runner. He's a hard runner. Of course, a transfer from Notre Dame, originally from Louisiana. Brian Kelly recruited him at Notre Dame. He's come back. He's leading the LSU Tigers in rushing at least as a running back. I think Daniels is probably, I'm not looking at the stats right now. Daniels or him are probably the leader. But as a running back, yeah, I mean, Logan Diggs is everything you could ask for and more. And he's not just a great runner. He's also a great pass protector, great in pass protection. And, boy, he's good receiving out of the backfield. So, yeah, he's been a great addition. I agree with that. So B+, that is what you said, right?
Yeah, I'd give him a B+, just because there's still always room to grow.
Oh, okay. But A for Daniels means that he's, even though you don't particularly like him, he's performing top-notch. There's a little room for growth for the running backs. I agree with that.
Yeah, I think that the running backs can kind of pick it up. I mean, Daniels is easy to score because there's only one Daniels on the field, whereas there's multiple running backs. I think Diggs does amazing, with the 60% success rate the past 2 weeks in games. I want to say he would be an A, but that's just Diggs himself.
What is it? What do you mean when you say a 60% success rate? What does that mean? Like
the rushing success rate.
Oh, so like every time he carries the ball, he gains yardage.
Right.
60% of the time.
Yes, sir.
Well, that's cool. Don't call me sir.
All right. Well, so we can talk about the wide receivers. I'll give them an A-. So I have a weird little ABA going on with the O-line.
With the O-line. ABA with the O-line?
Yeah. Right?
You said receivers.
Yeah, but they're all offense. Right?
You're right. Yeah, they are. But the receivers are receivers, and the offensive line is offensive line.
Okay, well, thank you for checking me.
Just confused. All right, so why are you giving the receivers an A? What did you say? An A-?
Yep.
But you've got Malik Neighbors, and you've got Brian Thomas.
You want to give them an A+?
I mean, aren't they like leading the nation on the nation's #1 offense?
Oh, they are, because wide receiver Malik Neighbors does lead the nation in receiving yards with 860 yards. And Brian Thomas is tied for the national lead in touchdown receptions.
And then Kyron Lacey just had a breakout game where he had like 4 receptions for 111 yards against Auburn. I got a feeling that the reason you're not giving them a straight-out A or even an A+ is because they have a tendency every once in a while to drop some wide-open passes.
Yeah, I mean, I also just, as any teacher does, why would you ever give out an A+ whenever you could just give out an A-? Because there's always room to grow and to do better for the LSU football team.
Man, I'm glad you're not my teacher. But anyway.
Yeah, I would say Kyron Lacey emerging. He's been amazing. He's what LSU's been looking for. I think as the season progresses, LSU will just get better and better in this forefront. They've already been doing so well that I don't see that necessarily dropping throughout the rest of the season.
Okay. All right, I'm on board with you.
All right, now I have something kind of more depressing to talk about. You want to talk about the defensive line?
Do we have to? Actually, since Pete Jenkins, who's been, like, what is this, a 6th time coaching at LSU?
Something like that.
Yeah, I mean, he was there back in the early 80s with Jerry Stovall. And then he was with Bill Arnsparger. And then he was with, after Arnsparger, he was with Mike Archer. And then he came back with Nick Saban. And then he was with Ed Ogeron. And now he's with Brian Kelly.
He's the secret sauce.
And they have shown improvement since
They have. Within the past 2 weeks since Jenkins been back, it's been steady pace for the defensive line. They're getting better and better each game. Hopefully the climb continues upward.
So what are you giving them grade-wise?
I'm giving them a D.
Yeah, I think they definitely deserved some straight Fs for about 3 straight games at least. So, and I don't think Auburn was. I mean, they did show improvement. I agree with you, but Auburn is not an offensive juggernaut by any stretch of the imagination. But they did stop their running. Yeah, I'll give them a D. They've got room for improvement, but I think they are. I'm optimistic they are improving.
Yeah, I'm optimistic. Not an F. they did grow from an F to a D only because of Auburn, but I don't know necessarily how much weight that'll hold because, like you said, Auburn's not really up to the same speed. So I'm just going to give them an overall D for this one. We're looking up and up for Army, and then for Bama. I guess we'll see what we're made of.
All right.
Let's look at the linebackers. I'm going to say that it's a solid C, but I think there's so much room for improvement that we could, by Army, be a B. Harold Perkins, amazing. I think the more that we let Perkins run around and do his little thing, running around, prancing on the field, the better he gets and the more he's able to do. I don't know if you saw him last game with the 5 tackles and then the 4 stops and the pressures that he put on everybody. I think that Perkins really came out last game.
I've never seen a faster player on the field from a defensive standpoint. I mean, he put actually there was a key stretch during the Auburn game where Auburn actually had a chance to cut into LSU's lead. I think LSU was only up by 10 points at that time, and Perkins had a pressure, and the next time he just came in like boom, out of nowhere, coming in off the edge, like you said, out of that sand position, and sacked them and put an end to that drive, and LSU went ahead and scored the next 4 times it had the ball, touchdowns each time, and just blew them out. Harold Perkins is amazing, and I do like him in that see ball, get ball position where he can do that. And you're right, LSU has finally worked him back into that position. He seems to be getting his quote-unquote cleats in the ground now, I think is how Kelly put it.
I like that, cool. Cleats in the ground. Harold Perkins definitely has done that. What about the defensive backs? Because I'm thinking was a D, but almost like the entire defense. We're all up climbing, so I want to give them a C because of Zy Alexander.
Well, I tell you, Zy Alexander, again, Zy Alexander had a great game, relatively speaking, against Auburn. But again, he was playing Auburn. Auburn did not.
Is it Auburn hate week in here?
Well, I mean, they had three games where they threw for under 100 yards, and I think Peyton Thorne was only 12 for 25 or so in this game. They're starting quarterback, 120-something yards. But again, that's because LSU, like I think Kelly gave Alexander a huge credit, saying he actually stepped up and did some things, treated the ball when it was in the air like he was a receiver the way he'd asked him to do. So he was going up and fighting for those balls, and the defensive backfield is showing improvement. I'm concerned about Deuce Chestnut not being on the team. We still don't know what his status is. We won't know until, I guess, sometime this week. Maybe we'll find out if he's coming back. Sage Ryan has moved to cornerback. I think his first start was in the Missouri game. Him and Zy Alexander do appear to be making progress, similar to what you said about the defensive line. I think they're going to only benefit from an improved defensive line moving forward. I'm still concerned about the depth back there in the defensive backfield, but I could see a C.
You could see a C? Yeah, I think.
I mean, up until if it before Auburn, I would have had a hard time giving them a D, but I could see a C now.
Yeah, I think a C is a fair average score to give them. They played good last week. I think they needed last week as a whole to feel better about themselves coming into the next few weeks, because these are going to be a hard few weeks coming up. You have your off week, and then you have Alabama, which will be a difficult win for LSU. Maybe not more so difficult, because I don't think Alabama's been doing good this season, but you still have the rivalry, which is big on their shoulders. I
agree with you. And the game at Tuscaloosa is going to be pretty much LSU has to win, or their season's pretty much over at that point, or at least the season's not over. But a loss at Alabama, as everybody knows, and LSU's out of the SEC championship contention. A win at Alabama, and they're in the driver's seat. So,
well, I'm hoping LSU wins.
Yeah.
Between you and I'll let you know I'm hoping LSU wins.
All right.
What are you thinking about the special teams? I think, our special team, they're not perfect, but within the Missouri game specifically, we needed the kickers to win the game?
Well, I think both Damian Ramos and Jay Bramblett, the punter, are both having solid years. I mean, Ramos has missed a couple of field goals, if I'm not mistaken, but he's been the mark of consistency for the most part. And Bramblett hardly ever gets to punt because that offense is doing such a great job. But when he does punt, he's been extremely effective backing up good returners and putting them out of bounds and unable to return the ball. He's shifted the field position quite a bit when he has punted, so he's been very effective. I have to, wonder how when you're looking at the return game though and figuring that into your special teams grade. What are you thinking? What are you thinking about the return game, punt return and kick return? So, I mean, I look at the kickoff returns and I look at like Caleb Jackson, and I think he's been somewhat explosive the last couple games. He had a couple solid punt returns. One of them got called. Kickoff returns. One of them got called back for a penalty, but he had another solid one against Auburn. I think that's some explosiveness that LSU needs in the return game. But punt return wise, we haven't seen anything that we were anticipating in terms of Aaron Anderson as an explosive punt returner. And we see Gregory Clayton Jr. back there doing the automatic fair catch every time he can, which I guess is better than nothing. I mean, at least you're not, fumbling it and muffing it and turning it over. So, I don't know. You're the teacher. I don't have a pen or a pencil.
I think I would agree with what you said. I think I would maybe even give the special teams a B+ or an A, just because I don't know this season if I've ever had a strong feeling about our special teams. I've had a lot of strong feelings about our offense and our defense, but I don't know if I've ever sat there at the screen and screamed at it because I was angry at anybody.
Yeah, like I said, they're not muffing punts or field goals. They're not fumbling it. So, yeah, I agree with you. All right, so you gave them an A?
I said a B+ or an A.
Okay, well, I'm saying which one?
Well, okay, I would go with B+ because I do think there's always room for growth.
Okay. I agree with you.
It's a good thing I didn't go into teaching.
All
right, so I think maybe the most anticipated part of this conversation is, what do you rank Coach Kelly?
Ooh, we're going to grade the coach.
I think it has to, right? I think everybody has their opinions on Brian Kelly. Should he be fired? Should we try to buy out his contract? Should he stay on? Is he getting better? Is there room for growth for him? Is there an uphill climb that he's been seeing from last season to this season?
He must run with a rough crowd. I hadn't heard any calls for Kelly's head, but I hear there's like posts all over social media, like when they lost to Ole Miss, fire him, fire Kelly, get out of it. I hadn't heard all that. I think the program's on a good track for stability right now. I think he's making progress. So if I were issuing grades, I would keep that as a consideration. He did start out with only 39 scholarship players, and he's done some great additions through the transfer portal to win the SEC West last year and to have LSU right now in position to do that. I give him high marks this year for bringing in Pete Jenkins and for making a move that was really a desperation move. But I think, I was very negative about that defense. I was mad. I was convinced they weren't going to show any improvement after the Ole Miss and Missouri games. I was really down on them. I hope it's not fool's gold. I believe that Kelly's move to bring in Pete Jenkins is a solid move now, and I do see some improvement. I think Army is going to be an extremely physical team, as they always are, and I think that's a good matchup for LSU's defense right now. I mean, you can't argue with what Kelly's put together offensively. I mean, he had the foresight and knowledge to bring Jaden Daniels back, and Jaden Daniels is the best quarterback in the country right now, in my opinion. way better than. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just teasing. I'm just teasing.
Way better than
No,
nothing.
I'm not teasing that. I think he's a great quarterback and just having a superb season, and I hope it continues. Knock on wood. But I think I think Kelly's foresight in bringing Daniels back is the only reason why LSU is in a position right now to still have all their goals still in check. Even though no two-loss team has ever made the college football playoffs, I think if the chips fall in a certain way and LSU wins the rest of its games, they could actually be back in the college football playoffs.
That's the hope. I'll say that I originally would have given Kelly a B, but I think the more that I think about Kelly and the more that I see and that I hear of him talking about his players, I want to give him an A just because it does take a lot of confidence in yourself and in your team to bring in Pete Jenkins and to have the ability to sit back and to see that this is what your team needs. It might look like a blow to you as a coach, but it betters the entire team to bring this in. So I think him being able to see that says a lot about him as a coach.
So what you're saying is he had to swallow a little bit of pride to concede that he needed that help?
Just a little bit. I think that he definitely needs some help. I know it's different to come in from Notre Dame into an SEC school, especially one as big as LSU that was calling for his head after the loss against Florida State and then really calling for his head after Ole Miss.
Man, you run with a rough crowd. All right, but I agree with you. So you're giving him an A?
I'll give him an A.
But there's room for improvement.
There is room for improvement, but I think that he does have the ability to be an A-plus coach. And if defense can keep performing at this level, LSU definitely has the offense to compete with every one of its remaining opponents. I just want to thank Todd for joining in on this call today. We're just going to take a break.
People come from everywhere to Pawpaw's Campers and Cars.
Only Pawpaw's Campers and Shit is Pawpaw's Campers and Cars of people. And we're gonna let it go for I forgot. Take the whole family over to Picayune. We got something for you. All right. What else we gonna say? PawpawsNicePrice.com. That's probably all we need to say.
Hi guys, welcome back. This is Camryn with Tiger Rag Audibles podcast. I'm just going to have a few minutes and sit there and tell you guys about the history that I think is important and really cool coming in with the game this weekend with LSU versus Army on October 21st. Now, we've only played against Army once in LSU football history. This was all the way back in 1931. LSU played Army in West Point and LSU lost 20-0. This is an important game for LSU fans because of the ties LSU has with Armies, and to look through the ties and how they're important, we need to go all the way back and remember something so sweet to every LSU football fan in their memory. LSU's first national championship in 1958 under head coach Paul Diesel, or some would even say Pepsodent Paul. And before Paul Diesel came on, the LSU Tigers had not won more than 2 Southeastern Conference games in 3 straight seasons. So I would even say Coach Diesel had a very high climb that he did within the 3 years that it took him whenever he first started in 55 and in 58 whenever he led the LSU Tigers into national championship. Paul Diesel decided to leave his assistant coaching job position in West Point for a job in LSU, so there's our first tie right there. He was the nation's youngest head coach at the time, so of course, knowing that, he had a lot of ropes he had to climb through and jump through to be seen as what he is now. During Diesel's 4th season at LSU, he established a revolutionary platooning system that many people now know and will always remember fondly of as a famous piece of LSU football history, that is the White Team, Go Team, and the Chinese Bandits. This was all thanks to Paul Diesel and what he thought would fit best for LSU football and the players that were playing at the time. It was also during this 4th year that Coach Diesel led the Tigers in an undefeated season and brought home LSU's first national championship in 1958. Of course, everybody loves Paul Diesel. He had secured his place in Louisiana's heart and every single player and every single LSU fan. So it was a big shock to the entire state and the team in 1961 whenever he decided to leave LSU to go back to West Point to help bring the program back to life. He stayed at West Point for about 4 seasons, and then he made his move to South Carolina, where he was there for 9 seasons coaching the Gamecocks. But this isn't the end of LSU's history with Diesel and the ties that he shares with the LSU community. Whenever Paul Diesel left, he left very big shoes to fill, of course, leaving a few years after a national championship and then leaving a team that was as good, if not better than the national championship team in 61. The pressure was on for the next head coach, and this was Charles McClendon. After back-to-back years of McClendon bringing LSU to the bowl games and only losing one of these games, he still had the past of Diesel to defeat. This time came in about 1966. Imagine a sold-out stadium trying to watch this opening game, LSU versus Gamecocks. And if the math is mathing for you guys, 1966, our very own Paul Diesel was the head coach of Gamecocks at the time. So this was a huge game for both coaches. All of the pressure that Diesel was getting on his side of LSU fans that were wanting to beat him, all of the people on McClendon's side that wanted McClendon to show Diesel who was boss at the time. It was a nerve-wracking game. And luckily for McClendon, he secured the win with a 28-12 score at the end of the game. McClendon stayed with LSU for 18 years and is the leader in seasons coached in games won with 137 victories throughout his time at LSU as a whole. And like I said, it's not the end of our history with Diesel because we see him come back because once a Tiger, always a Tiger. In 1978, Diesel found his way back into the boot and stayed on as the LSU Director of Athletics until 1981. Now, we just wanted to take a second and wish a happy late birthday to Charlie Mack, Charles McClendon, Coach McClendon, whatever you know him and love him as. We wanted to wish him a happy late birthday. He did turn 100 on October 17th, and while he did pass away in 2001, he's still largely celebrated amongst LSU fans. Former LSU football player John Ed Bradley, who became the first LSU offensive lineman in modern history to win a varsity letter during his freshman season, he also wrote a huge, critically acclaimed book, It Never Rains in Tiger Stadium, am I right? And he was also a part of Charles McClendon's last season at LSU. He wrote a letter to Charles McClendon at the request of our very own Tiger Rag editor Todd Horne to celebrate McClendon's 100th birthday. In this letter, Bradley talks about the amazing impact that McClendon had on him and the impact being an LSU Tiger had on him, saying, yeah, you might be 100 and 100 might be old. As long as there's LSU, there'll always be you, coach. There's no talking about LSU football without bringing up Paul Diesel and Charles McClendon and what they both did for the state of Louisiana throughout their coaching careers. This just makes it all the more special that this weekend, LSU will get to play Army once more at home in Death Valley this Saturday, October 21st.
On the occasion of the 100th birthday of Charles McClendon, October 17th, 2023. Dear Coach Mack, those purple shorts you wore, the white shirt, the whistle hanging from a cord around your neck, your cap crooked, your big hands. I can still hear your voice, Coach. You're not always yelling either. How did you get to be 100? In my head, you're only about half that. We're practicing on the Ponderosa, and you're in your golf cart hauling A from one practice field to the next. Hopping out, hobbling over, only too happy to get in some kid's grill and school him on how it's done. Your black shoes with corrugated rubber soles, your skinny socks, how red your face got when the clock wouldn't stop, and your will was all you had left to give. God, Coach, what a time that was. I wish we could go back and do it again, have Tiger Stadium again and the sound the crowd made when we left the chute and came running out. The bright smell of whiskey in the air, the perfume from the co-eds in the student section, the lights. You remember the lights, Coach? And poor, terrified Mike roaring in his cage. You told me once that you'd always be with me, that you'd be with all your boys. It might have been the truest thing I ever heard you say because you are, Coach. Even now, all these years later, you're with me. The big shiny desk in your office piled high with scouting reports and letters to recruits. Plaques on the wall, trophies on the floor. How light you seemed when Big Ed and I hoisted you on your shoulders and carried you to midfield. Your hand lifting as you waved one last goodbye. Easy now, easy, you said, as if we were a couple of Clydesdales and this was a ride you weren't sure you wanted to take. Yeah, you might be 100, and And 100 might be old, but what is 100 to a life carved in stone? As long as there's LSU, there'll be you, Coach. So happiest of birthdays to you, and thanks again for all. John Ed Bradley, author, journalist, and former LSU football player.
Well, that wraps up our podcast for today. Thank you guys for tuning in to Tiger Rag Audibles podcast. This is Camryn Conner. I enjoyed hosting y'all for today's episode. I want to thank Todd Horne for joining our episode today in dissecting LSU's midterm grades, Jake McMains for producing this episode, and our sponsor, Pawpaw's Campers and Cars at pawpawsrvs.com, 1-800-728-CAMP, 1-800-728-2267. That'll be it for episode 23. Stay tuned and we'll be back later this week.